I'm actually at a cycling event here, and I met my friends from Cycle Islington, and therefore I'm prompted to say, happy 50th birthday. Thank you for keeping me safe when I cycle through your brilliant borough.
Lived in Highbury, worked in the city, and that was a daily ride in, no big problem. I didn't worry too much about the roads, I just took them as they came. I was riding around inner London on a bicycle from 1967. Back in the early 70s, I was going to a meeting of the Cyclist Touring Club, informal meeting in central London. A message had got to them in a roundabout route that this Islington group was going to form, and would anyone there like to join it? And I was the only one from Islington, so I got the job. I turned up at the first meeting at the old registry office, and I've been going ever since.
There was very little cycling. If I cycled into college, I cycled into Bloomsbury most days, and I was often the only cyclist that I saw. And indeed, there was no cycle parking, and I was allowed to keep my bicycle in the office.
In the early days, when we wanted parking facilities, not just saying chain up to the nearest railings or road signs or whatever.
So I was actually a member of Friends of the Earth transport subgroup at the time, and that's where I put my energies, and that was the basis from which I produced the report about riders' routes and racks in Islington.
Those were the days when Sheffield racks were coming into use, and we wanted more parking facilities.
Sent it to the borough engineer, and he said, very interesting, we don't have time to take it forward, but if you write asking for what you want from us, then we'll put it to committee. And it was passed, just like that. So that was the installation of racks, but most importantly, it was signed cycle routes through the borough, because I based my report on a survey that students at UCL undertook. We did a big census to get the extent of cycling, and that provided the evidence for demand, really.
I think I must have been involved in ICAG from about 1979 or 1980. I just happened to go down Liverpool Road one morning and got a flyer from Kate Oliver, and that encouraged me to join ICAG. Islington was quite progressive in some ways at sort of early days of traffic management. And early days of traffic management was mainly concerned with street closures.
Well, the council was forever blocking off roads, and we did slowly get them to stop completely blocking the roads and leave a bit each as a route either side for cyclists to ride through.
One of the key things was a road that crossed over St John's Road. You had to lift your bicycle over the steel barriers at the end of that, and those steel barriers were adjusted so that you could get a bicycle through there.
Islington had some quite cycle-friendly council members. The Transport Subcommittee thought it was a good idea to have a member of ICAG on the committee. We lobbied for Church Path in Highbury to be made accessible to bicycles.
And of course there were people who objected to having it as a shared path to start with. I remember a former coordinator saying it was the first shared path in the whole of London.
So that was the first thing I think that ICAG achieved. And then the next thing that I remember was having a cycle crossing of Holloway Road at the Madras Place Fieldway Crescent junction by the library.
I joined London Cycling Campaign as soon as I came to London in 1985. And that's when I was working as a bicycle dispatch rider 3 days a week, and putting together a portfolio to do a master's in fine art at Goldsmiths. So I was cycling a lot and really aware of how horribly, horribly dangerous the roads were at that time and still are.
So happy 50th birthday, Cycling Islington. I want to say a massive thank you for all that you've done in terms of advocating for safer streets, better cycling infrastructure, all the bike parking, the low traffic neighbourhoods, everything that's happened in Islington. You guys deserve a huge pat on the back.
I used to work in South London and cycle from North London 10 miles each way. And I just used to go down Holloway Road and down St John Street and go around the Vauxhall roundabout, because any alternative route just took too long.
Then they were much, much more congested than they are now.
There weren't as many potholes.
Busy, inconsiderate, aggressive motorists at times.
Well, I mean, I think I had pretty low expectations, so they didn't seem any worse or any better than any others.
In the early 90s, when I had my first child, I suddenly became aware of just how incredibly difficult it was to get around safely if you were pushing a pram, and that made me alert to what it's like for anyone who's older or disabled getting around on our streets. So yes, I started campaigning with Living Streets and tried to kind of become a bit of a bridge between the people campaigning for pedestrians and the people campaigning for people on bikes.
Happy 50th birthday, Cycle Islington. Well done for your amazing work bringing cycling to the borough of Islington over the last 50 years. Thanks for your time and all the volunteering. It's one of the best places to cycle in London. So keep up the good work and have a great birthday.
One of the coordinators, Gavin Killett, he got some connection to Sunnyside Community Centre and Gardens, and he just set up Dr. Bike, effectively, just cycle workshop. And I was just interested to do that job with him.
I met my partner there. So I was a volunteer mechanic and she came along to try and fix her bike. And normally we did manage to help people fix their bikes. She was actually one of the ones where we failed.
Eventually it transferred to join the plant sale on a Sunday afternoon.
In the mid to late 1990s, I was responsible for designing the ICAG logo. So I sat in bed one morning and hand drew this image of the letters ICAG made out to be like a bicycle. And it was a bit lame, I thought, but they seemed to like it. And it seemed to stay for quite a long time.
I went to my first ICAG meeting in January 1997. So I think it must be about the one New Year's resolution that's perhaps stuck.
When I moved into Islington, there were segregated cycle routes, and one of the ones that was most popular and well used was at Owen Street, which is like a bypass for the Angel Islington. But at one point, the developers, in collaboration with the council, decided to put up a load of pedestrian barriers to stop the cyclists from cycling through. So we had a campaign to reopen the Owen Street cycle path. That was 1998, so it was a year before the manifesto in 1999.
Probably still relevant today, and not everything on it's been achieved. I remember Skinner Street going in because I'm afraid we were rather scathing. Great that it was a bit of segregated route, but it was a very small bit of segregated route, which, as sadly is the case today, it's not really very well joined up.
For Bike Week every year, we used to sweet talk some of the local cafes and people into giving us free croissant and buns and what have you. And we would make some coffee, and a few people would make homemade cakes and flapjacks. And basically, we would invite cyclists to stop for a few minutes and have a hot drink and a bit of breakfast with us.
That's a very good space to have a bike breakfast.
In 1998, we did a cycle count, and I remember at the peak there were 240 bikes an hour.
It was a whole mixture of things. It was raising awareness of the group and the London Cycling Campaign, and certainly trying to liaise with the council.
Happy birthday, Islington cyclists. 50 years. Wonderful. You've been in existence even longer than I've been the MP for Islington North. Well done. Well done on your persistence over all those years. Standing up for cycling, for cycle lanes, for cycle parking, for cycle security, for cycle training, for cycle repairs. Cycling is such a great thing to do. Great commemoration. Well done, you guys. Carry on for at least another 50 years.
Happy 50th birthday, Cycle Islington.
We tried to influence things as best we could and look at plans and come up with suggested improvements. But you're also working against the lobbies for bus companies and taxis and a lot of road design engineers still then designed for articulated lorries and fast traffic. I think that mindset is changing slowly, but it is incredibly slow to change.
I think it was the mid-2000s, 2005, is when I moved to this area. Yeah, I found it pretty good to go cycling, but I'm quite a confident cyclist, so it was no big deal for me. But yeah, it was somewhat different to what we experience these days, I guess.
There was no cycle paths as such. There were cycle routes, which were sort of the blue paint on the tarmac variety, but it wasn't blue paint.
We organised a few rides. There were family rides. There was also the Little Green Ride, which several of us used to go on, which was a bit of an institution.
They'd take the train out from Finsbury Park every other Sunday, go for a cycle ride around through Hertfordshire, stop for a pub lunch, and occasionally even a tea stop. In fact, possibly more eating and drinking than cycling on some occasions, and then the train home. Quite a pleasant way of spending a Sunday, yeah.
I do remember one of our initial achievements was actually here on Highbury Field, was getting a legal northbound entry into Highbury Fields, if you can believe that. I've got a photo here of John Ackers and Chris Asprey and myself cycling through the newly opened access.
There weren't any dramatic successes. I think it was more a question of gentle pressure and influence, which some of the luminaries were pretty good at.
You had to get a councillor to sponsor you to use the town hall, and we just managed to continue to do that for, decades.
Oh, I remember one thing I personally got involved with was potholes. I can remember being interviewed on BBC Radio London about potholes in Mayton Street, which is just the other side of Seven Sisters Road. It worked, didn't it? Look how all the potholes are gone now, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, this is the Madras Place Junction. And back in 2008, a local campaigner called Lisa Pontecorvo was tragically killed while she was wheeling her bike across the road. We started meeting both ICAG and Living Streets and also some local residents. We started having regular meetings with TfL. They put in pedestrian crossings to the north and the south of the bike crossing. So what they were trying to do was to really make it very clear that there were people walking and cycling across Holloway Road at this point, as well as people going along Holloway Road north-south. And it's still not perfect. There's still a real problem when you get queuing traffic.
Well, my big thing has always been actually less the infrastructure and more the hearts and minds thing. So, one of the things I used to do was actually be a cycle trainer, cycle instructor. And indeed, ICAG paid for me to be trained to be a cycle instructor because we were trying to do some work to get more people do a bike buddy thing.
I'd organised 2 cycling festivals over at the Whittington Park Community Association. The first one was saved from the pit of disaster because it was a terribly rainy day in July and it had to be moved indoors. And if anyone tries to organise a cycling festival indoors, I could say that it is very, very stressful.
The focus then was very much on trying to get the roads for everybody rather than, we've had a big shift now to segregated routes for people who are more anxious about cycling. Being actually physically segregated is much the best way.
Wow, 50 years. Cycle Islington is so awesome and has done so much good in Islington over those years. I am so grateful to every single campaigner who has, and for every single thing that they've done across those years.
I'm Ruth Cadbury, MP, and I chair Parliament's Select Committee on Transport, long-standing chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Cycling and Walking, and I want to wish Islington Cycling Campaign a very, very happy 50th birthday, and congratulations for all that you've done over the 50 years. Well done. Thank you.
Once I started being active with ICAG, everything we did, I was there. I was also taking a lot of photos and writing stuff for the website when we got that established. So I found myself turning up as the snapper. I used to describe myself as a campaigning cyclist rather than any other sort of cyclist.
Over the years, I campaigned with Living Streets and ICAG, as they were then, to get rid of the gyratory at Archway, to get rid of the gyratory at Highbury Corner, although there's still quite a lot of changes that could happen.
One of the first campaigns I joined was at Archway to get rid of the gyratory. Residents, cyclists and pedestrians joined up and did a walk around to show how bad the gyratory was.
I remember clearly at Archway, while they were consulting us about redesigning what was then a gyratory, I was involved with the Nag's Head consultation from TfL, about which nothing happened.
You know, there are some legacy traffic filters which makes the roads less trafficky. I mean, at the time the roads were 30 miles an hour. There weren't things such as school streets.
It does seem to all peter out other than Archway. So there are little tiny bits here and there. But yes, it does tend to be the southern end of the borough that gets all the work. At this end, we tend to just have to live with it a bit.
I think it was the Times Cities Fit for Cycling campaign that they launched. I had children of my own, and there were some videos of children cycling in the Netherlands. That's when I realised that we could have better facilities in London for children to cycle to school, safe routes. We invented a route that linked several of the local schools and then spoke to parents at the local schools and organised a ride around the route. It was called the Tour de Tufnell Park, and we lobbied the local politicians for better infrastructure for children, and we got some publicity.
I was at the Canal Festival, met somebody called Alison Dines, chatting to Alison, ended up going to a few meetings, involved in helping to produce the newsletter, went on the committee shortly afterwards and gradually got pulled into the London Cycling Campaign as a trustee and also as a founder member of the LCC Women's Network.
I know some people aren't particularly keen on it, but I quite like what they've done in Highbury Fields, Highbury Corner itself. So the cycle route around there makes it easier to get around. So yeah, there's a lot of infrastructure that's happening. It's all a bit piecemeal, but that is ever thus with all the time I've ever been involved in campaigning.
I would not have relished going out on my own in the early days. It was only going throughout with groups that I got more confidence to go out on the roads, because they're pretty scary as beginners. And women in particular find the roads very intimidating.
The LCC Women's Network is calling for safe cycling for women in London.
I think, in a way, I guess what I feel is my time as coordinator, at least there was a group that was being active, and although perhaps things weren't happening, when there was a shift and suddenly things started to happen more, at least the group was there and was able to talk and become much more engaged with the council.
That's been put on the too difficult pile as well.
I mean, there's been so much change across Islington, and I'd just like to say on a cross-party basis, because obviously I've been a Green councillor for the last 12 years, but working with Rowena Champion, who's the Labour executive member, has been really constructive. And I think, you know, this is when you're talking about road danger reduction, when you're talking about making streets that are safe and accessible for children, older and disabled people, it's so important that people can work cross-party and actually work just to make things better for everyone.
Happy birthday, Cycle Islington. I think it's fair to say that when I started cycling here over 30 years ago. You had to be pretty determined. We've come a long way with many more people participating. Cycle Islington has been at the heart of that. But we know we have more to do. We want to make sure that everybody who wants to has the opportunity to cycle, to gain from the health and well-being benefits, and to experience the sheer joy that cycling can bring. We know that road danger is a barrier for too many still. So we need to continue improving these better, safer, connected cycle routes.
Drayton Park has been transformed with the work of so many campaigners working together into a place that is now, somewhere where people feel safe to cycle to school with their kids, and older people feel safe to get on a bike. It's a completely different place now. It's really calm and a really pleasant place to be. Liverpool Road, in terms of when they brought in the bike lanes, I think that made a real difference. It made people think when you park not right by the curb and there's a protected cycle lane sort of between the parked cars and the pavement, I think it makes everyone think about who that road space is for.
I don't feel safe between a line of cars and a curb with pedestrians. You can get pedestrians coming at you from both sides, not knowing what's there, but it seems to work okay.
Highbury Fields, where they've now closed off that road through the middle of Highbury Fields, is good.
TfL had finished all the work and they were ready to open up the road. And it was just as the pandemic was starting, and I just said to Richard Watts, who was council leader at the time, look, this is a real opportunity just to see how it goes with keeping this road closed. And now I think nobody would want to call for that road to be reopened.
Better infrastructure, paint doesn't protect. We want physical infrastructure and more consideration given to what the Women's Network have termed social safety, which is don't have cycle routes going along canals. Who wants to cycle along a canal at night? Don't have them going round trading estates which are dark at night or with overgrown bushes, badly lit, things like that. Just think about who's going to use the routes and make them safe for everybody.
Well, it was Cycle Islington by the time I got involved, but it was I moved to Islington in 2018, having come across from Camden, so I knew a lot of people from Cycle Islington because they'd been helping us in Camden.
I'm a community nurse and I go around all of Islington, so I really like all the cycle routes that there are. The worst bit of the route impacts the safety of the whole route.
Campaigning is our raison d'etre, and I think we do it very well. I was very impressed when I joined Cycle Islington at how organised the Central Committee was, and the keenness and knowledge in the personnel involved, partly as a result of their historical connection with ICAG originally, but also a general enthusiasm to make the world a better place. Starting with Islington.
What typically happens in this country is you have a route, and then as soon as it gets at all difficult or complicated or dangerous, the route simply gives up.
C50, which disappears at Finsbury Park, we're getting there, but for me it's too slow.
But that's been on the too difficult pile for Islington and TfL for a long time.
Well, I think it comes down to political will. It comes down to money as well, obviously, but if we have got councillors and transport execs who see the silver bullet that providing decent cycling infrastructure can be, then that's half the battle.
It's no use having a beautiful cycle path, route, whatever, if it stops, as they often do, and you think, well, I've got here now, what do I do?
I find Seven Sisters Road, it's more people, when I'm using it correctly, more people are coming towards me.
When I was involved with ICAG, I was always keen that better work should be done rather than just implementing a segregated bike lane, but actually making the road, the Seven Sisters, this gyratory, get rid of this gyratory certainly, and do something more exciting about that area to make it a bit more pedestrian friendly as well as cyclist friendly.
Seems silly that having put the cycle lane on the right hand side of the road, one-way street, and marking it as such, of course most people treat it as a two-way lane because it is wide enough. So do I, to be honest.
My real feeling has been just to try and get more people cycling. You know, to me, cycling is the best way of getting round. I can't understand why everybody doesn't do it.
One of the discussions we all used to have was how do we get more people to get on bikes? Actually, I think there are more people on bikes in London.
We always did the Angel Canal Festival, and we always did the festival at what's now called the Ecology Centre. So it was getting the name of LCC and ICAG out.
Quite a lot of people who come to the stall have actually heard of us but not really sure what we do. Think that they are a very good medium for attracting passers-by who wouldn't normally know about us.
The more people we get in Cycle Islington, the more noise we can create. So we're very keen to get more members, get youngsters on board, younger people, people from different communities. Going out in family rides, you get little ones coming along. Seeing little children of 4 and 5 on their wee bikes, they've got a huge amount of stamina. They've a whale of a time, and they appreciate the freedom that bikes can give, which is what we want everybody to be able to do if that's their choice.
I'd like to see a real network where low traffic neighbourhoods, if you like, or livable neighbourhoods are cyclable and connected. And I think that's the key thing that we've got to work on next, is persuading Transport for London, who operate a lot of the main roads which cause barriers between very cyclable areas of Islington.
I think I became just aware of how much there is that unites campaigning to make conditions better for walking as well as making conditions better for cycling. And, you know, reducing danger, reducing traffic domination, all of that is absolutely critical if people want to get around our city safely, conveniently and accessibly.
Islington's getting better. We've got a lot of low traffic neighbourhoods, livable neighbourhoods, which are great for cycling in. Still got a bit of work to do.
I think that we have a good relationship with the council, not as good as it might be. We still need to work on that, but we do meet with the councillors on a regular basis and officers, and I think that that's very valuable.
I think sometimes we're too polite. I think we need to make more noise and shout about things that need to be changed or improved.
It's really important that TfL and Islington Council prioritise those key transport objectives that TfL has. So that's Vision Zero by 2041. That's no one being killed or seriously injured on our roads.
I can see that there's been active campaigning and despite opposition or reluctance from the local authority, and I think that has given the current people involved a momentum to improve things and make things better for our children and grandchildren.
I'm Laura Lake and I'm here to wish Cycle Islington a happy 50th birthday.
Happy 50th, Cycle Islington.
50 years old. Happy birthday, ICAG.
Happy birthday. I guess I still more often think of it as ICAG.
Happy birthday, ICAG.
Happy birthdays. ICAG, I'll say, now known as Cycle Islington.
Happy birthday, Cycle Islington. It's been great fun working with you as ICAG and as Cycle Islington. And here's the next 50 years. I won't be around to see it, but I'm very happy to work towards it.
Happy birthday!